I am so thrilled to welcome to Author's Corner Mary Nolan Brown. She's written a couple of very interesting books, and one of them is called Trouble in Texas. I used to live in Texas, and right away my antenna went up. A Summer Adventure. We're going to talk about that, and then Picketing the President. Mary, thanks so much for joining us on AC.
Thank you. I enjoy your invitation.
All right, let's talk first about Trouble in Texas. What made you write this book and what's it about?
It's about my husband's time growing up in Northeast Texas. I heard so many of his tales that after a while I decided I just had to write them down. And although these are not word for word his adventures, it's based on his experiences. I've lost you.
And
You
no,
hear
you've got
whatever.
us. You have us. No worries. We got you. Your smiling face. Trouble in Texas is about your husband's experiences. And you talk about Matthew Morrison and Matthew Morrison spending the summer doing what? The summer of 1944 in a cool place called Omaha, Texas. Tell us what Omaha, Texas is like.
Omaha, Texas is uh, a very small Texas town in Northeast Texas. Uh, Only about 690 people at that time, and built alongside the railroad track. Downtown consisted of one block, and most of the people lived out in the countryside. There were farmers and ranchers and oil men and a very rural area.
And so for you too, you grew up in a much different area, and I think it's worth talking about how you met your husband.
Well, I grew up on Amelia Island, Florida, just off the coast of Northeast Florida. And my husband came to visit some friends on the island, and he was in the Navy. And we met through friends, and our courtship continued from there.
Tell me about one, and the people that are watching this, tell me about one of the stories in your book.
Oh, one of them is my husband did some rodeoing when he was in high school, did calf roping, and although he had the horse, he didn't have a conveyance to take it to the different rodeos. And so he was able to go with two other young men who happened to have a truck and a trailer to take the horses. And he enjoyed that. And one day when he was at his father's business working, his father called him and told him to come home immediately. And he couldn't imagine what in the world the problem was. So he went home and found two Texas Rangers who were talking with his father, trying to find out what my husband knew about rustling that was going on in the area. And it turns out the two boys, after dropping my husband off at home in the evening, would take their truck and their trailer and go steal cattle and take them up into Arkansas to sell. And they made the mistake of picking up a registered steer. And when the person they were going to sell it to checked the upper lip, they found identification tattoo.
Wow.
And of course, the police were called in, or the sheriff, I should say. And that's where it originated. And that type of situation is used in the book Trouble in Texas. It's not exactly what happened with my husband, but it's the basis for it.
Yeah. And Trouble in Texas, a summertime adventure, you can get on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever great books are sold. What did your family think of the book?
Excuse me?
What did your family think of the book?
Oh, they were thrilled with it. They had a big time. And I have a friend in West Texas who came from that area, and she has the book, and she sent me a note, and she said, I remember when all of that happened. And so it was interesting to get feedback from someone else, and she could relate to the different incidents that are in the book, even though they're not exactly as they happen, but they're the basis for the situations that come up in the book.
Yeah, it's a really, really fun read, and it takes you right in the heart of this small town. You have another book too called Picketing the President. Tell the audience what that book is centered around.
Picketing the President is based on my great grandmother's experiences as a suffragist in 1917 through about 1919. She was one of the women who picketed the White House and was, as they say, incarcerated for picketing. And she was in the workhouse, and they were force fed through tubes down their throats, and all sorts of terrible things happened. But the book is taken from the viewpoint of a fictitious great granddaughter who goes with grandmother because grandmother was in her 70s when she went, and the family was concerned that she might become ill or something of that sort, and someone needed to be there to sort of look after her. But of course, grandmother wasn't the type of person you look after. She was in charge of everything that she did. And Delia is just out of high school. And on the way there, she meets a young army captain who is the romance point of the book. She also meets a number of prominent suffragists, Alice Paul, and becomes very involved with that. Also, she meets people who have been in the World War and are just returning from France. It's an overview of the era and a lot of the social norms of the time, as well as a lot of the political people who were involved.
How did you find out some of the stories about your grandmother? How did you, was it family talking about it, or was there diaries?
Actually, I didn't even know anything about her until, oh, I was married and had children and happened to see an article in the Jacksonville newspaper that said Mary Nolan, prominent Jacksonville socialite, incarcerated for picketing the White House. And I asked my aunt, I asked, who is she? And she said, oh, that's your great grandmother. And I had no idea. So I talked with some different relatives, and each of them had some little snippet of information about her. But from what I understand, she was quite a headstrong woman and was doing what she wanted to do. And I'm quite sure even if the family had not supported her, she would have gone ahead and done it anyway. But Alice Paul wanted her to come back to Washington, D.C. to picket because she said that great grandmother's age was one of the attractions that made the newspapers write about what they were doing. Because she, being an elderly person and being still willing to sacrifice, that it drew attention to all of this that's going on.
How does that make you feel? I mean, I think it's incredible you've written this book. Do you feel super proud of your grandmother?
Oh, yes. Yes, I'm very pleased with to know about her. And I have since then found out more about her background and her lineage and that sort of thing. And she was a school teacher and helped to establish the library in one of the towns in South Carolina.
Wow.
Laurens. And so she was very active civically all through her life, from what I can find out.
When people read that book, what do you hope they take away when they put the book down?
That women have been fighting for a long time for equality in politics and in different segments of their lives, personal lives, and that what we're going through now with our uh, Supreme Court rulings and things of that sort are nothing new, and that there are always strong women who are willing to step forward and to lead others to an amicable settlement of all of these contentious subjects.
I love that. And again, you can get both of these books on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Just terrific talking to you. Thank you so much, Mary, for coming on.
You're most welcome.